Good evening, welcome back to Marty's Tying Bench. Tonight I'm putting together kits for this week's Vice Squad fly tying event, and I've chosen the John Barr's Slump Buster, a very popular, very effective little small to medium streamer. Now I'm tying this one on a size 8, but the hook shank is a 2XL streamer hook, so it's kind of more like a 10 with a big gap. I've got a cone on it, and you can use any color cone, of course. Lots of color substitutions on this one. But this one, which you'd call, it's not the extra small, but it's a small cone. Now I've got some .025 lead, and I'm just going to pinch that right to the shank and make 10 wraps. Clean that up in the back. And push that lead up into the cone to keep it centered. Now, there is something magic about 10 wraps, and that is that it leaves just the right amount of coils at the back of the cone to provide me an index for where I'm going to tie the squirrel collar. If you want this heavier, obviously you're going to put more weight on it, but this one, the small fly, that cone and some lead's plenty to get this one down. Alright, now I am going to tie on some belly material, and I've got some flat mylar body braid. This is an old Spirit River product, but you can get this from Wapsie, Hairline, lots of places. This is a pearl variation, but you can tie it with gold or copper and get a nice effect as well. You see, I tied in the frayed end of this body braid because once I wrap it and cut it, I will have a clean cut, and it's easier to make sure you don't end up with a frayed piece on both ends. Now, I've got wire for a rib to hold the zonker strip in place, and I'm going to tie that the length of the shank. Wire, again, color doesn't matter. You can use gold like this, you can use copper, red, chartreuse. Now I'm going to wrap the body braid forward. Let me get that wire tamed a little bit. And I'm going to wrap that until I get to the lead. And if I tie it off right there, by the time I trim it, pretty smooth underbody, huh? Make a few wraps over the lead coils, but I'm going to bring it right back. Now I've got zonked squirrel skin, and I'm just going to tie the very tip of it right there at our initial tie-in point. I don't need to fill it in all the way up to the cone because we're going to cover that anyway. Get a little bit of moisture on my fingers and part that hair right at the last, I guess it would have been the first turn of the body braid, and use the wire to tie it in place. And then I reach forward and part it for another turn. Move it forward. Each one of these, I'm combing all that hair back up before I pull the wire tight. That'll keep your zonker materials on top. And just continue forward. You know, it's only going to take a few wraps to hold this down, and as you wrap, you'll come up with a comfortable number of turns. There we go. All that hair goes back together, and you can't see the where the wire goes through the hair. Alright, now to keep these consistent, what I like to do is bend it forward and part it right at the back of the cone, and that will show me right where to cut my leather. And that'll result in a consistent length. Once you find out what that length is, you could always take your squirrel strip and cut these into pieces before you even start tying, but this is a handy way to do it. Now the rest of the squirrel strip, I'm going to cut it into just a little bit of a point, because I'm going to tie it in right behind the cone. I don't have to tie it in right at the back of the, you know, there's a little bit of a gap there, but that's okay. I just need enough so that if I get a turn and a half or 2 turns of squirrel, I can fill in behind the cone and get that nice collar effect. A couple of loose turns and then pull it tight. And cut that leather off close. Usually I cut that leather with fingernail clippers, but they were starting to scratch the enamel off of the painted cones, so I'm just going to use scissors here. A couple whip finishers and we're going to be done. There we go. The color of this squirrel strip is rust, so this is a little rusty Slump Buster. Try it in a number of colors and have some fun.